Perfect. So I think we have everybody here, and we'll have a few more that will join as we kick in. So yeah, welcome to this is our November huddle. So the 11th one of the year, the second to last before we do a end of the year celebration with Pauline. And today we have Philippa and Michael joining us for this discussion. And it will be a casual discussion. We have some questions to ask for Michael and Philippa. I actually had some people send some questions ahead of time too. So that's exciting. But what I'd like to start with, first of all, thank you to both of you for taking the time to join us. And I'd like to start with just introduction for the community here. We have a range of people here today. Some people are mentors, coaches, athletes, alumni of the program. So everybody is an athlete or a former athlete, but they've been linked to athletes or in one way or another, whether as a participant, a beneficiary, or a supporter. So that's sort of the audience that you get. They're all here to hear about your athletic career, but most of all, your career after sport and what you've been able to achieve beyond sport. So maybe we'll kick in with you, Philippa, if you want to give us a short introduction, and then we'll go with Michael.
Okay, sure. So hi, everybody. I'm the co-founder of LaunchBreak, which is a women's networking community for athletes who played women's sports in college or beyond. We do all types of networking, virtual events, live events. We have a very vibrant founder community also of women athlete entrepreneurs. And started in 2024. We have 2,400 members today. Over 20 countries, athletes from 700 universities. I played tennis in college, not even close to like the Olympic level of some of the athletes here. I was a walk-on the women's tennis team at Columbia and Barnard. Started as a D3 athlete, wound up a D1 athlete, and we can get into all that later. And just great, happy to be here today, happy to meet all of you. Looking forward to a nice conversation.
Thank you, Philippa. Michael, you want to follow?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Horvath. I co-founded and led a company called Strava for much of the last 17 years, stepped away from it at the end of last year. That journey, we knew it was going to take a while. It's still undergoing. There's a great team there in place, continuing to push that forward. But it's a community for people around the world to help them, motivate them to be active. And it grew out of my experience with my co-founder rowing on the crew team in college. We walked onto the crew team this is last century, by the way.
Me too.
So it's long, long ago. But that experience of sport really transformed us as humans. We became better selves, better people as a result. And the only problem was when we graduated, we lost the team. We left that environment, and we said, how can we bring that not only back to us, but maybe back to other people using technology? So that's what led us to create Strava. Was we wanted to bring the boathouse back. And it really doesn't matter what sport or where you do it, but we felt it was such an important part of our lives. And I think that Strava shows that now that it's reached the size it's reached, that's a universal phenomenon, that people benefit from being connected to others through sport. So I've kind of walked through life thinking about, how do I create something that doesn't exist? That's sort of what motivates me, and I'm excited to be here and maybe share some of that, how that happened, but also just the sense that inside everybody are ideas about making the world a different place, and those can become reality through your efforts.
Yes, thank you for sharing, and I definitely look forward to hearing about your new venture as well, and how you go from like growing a small baby to like starting a new one again, and having the motivation to do it all over again.
Yes.
I guess the first question we wanted to dive in with is for both of you. Sorry, is in Michael, you alluded to it a little bit on well, how did the idea come to fruition for Strava, and maybe we can start for Philippa, like where did it come from, starting LaunchBreak, and first of all, you also co-founded LaunchBreak with someone else, so. Did it come from the two of you together, and what was that story?
Yeah. So my co-founder here, Teresa, is on as well. So we were doubles partners way back in the day at Columbia. And we had a really supportive, Teresa, really supportive team. And kind of like Michael said, like, it's just we so bonded, and they're our lifelong friends. And we've supported each other professionally and personally. And we wanted to kind of recreate that on a bigger scale. So that was part of it. Also, Teresa and I have been mentoring young women and women athletes for years as part of like volunteer boards at Columbia. And we noticed like a gap in the marketplace, that there was no way for women across all different sports to network with each other. And we just felt like, especially for the up and coming sports, let's say women's wrestling, for instance, they don't have the huge alumni network that maybe tennis or soccer has, right? So they need to have support from other, other sports. And it's amazing. Like people will say to us, I can't believe this is happening. I've been always thinking that something like this should exist. And the reception in the community is just so warm. Like everyone supports each other. We all act like one team. Sometimes on LinkedIn, it can feel very competitive with people bragging or whatever, but everyone in LaunchBreak, kind of similar to Athlete Soul, we're all there to support each other. We're all one team. Teresa and I have been friends for years. We've done a lot of work together, and we knew we'd be good partners, which of course is very important when you're starting something. So, the stars were all aligned. We started it before the Caitlin Clark bandwagon, and then of course now it's the end thing. But, it's been our life's work. We love women athletes. We love athletes in general, and love what we're doing.
And just for context, Philippa, when exactly sort of the idea originated with you and Teresa, and when did you start after that?
Yeah, so I think it probably originated in sometime in 2023. And then we did like a beta launch with like our close friends and family, I think the end of 2023. And then more broadly launched it in 2024 with probably like 100 members. And, today we have over 2,400 members. And, just really, it's growing. I think there's a need for it. We also have relationships with US Ski and Snowboard, USA Wrestling, US Women's Rugby Foundation. Penn State is a first athletics partnership with their Penn State Women Teammates for Life, where their athletes are invited to be part of LaunchBreak, and they have their own networking space within our platform. So, we are continuing to grow, and, the bigger we are, obviously, the better we are to support our members.
And like you said, this is something that you had started before with the work that you did at Columbia. So it feels to me that LaunchBreak is sort of the result of something much less formal that you had started, and that was perhaps not virtual and more in person. Sort of an expansion of that a little bit.
Yeah. So I over 10 years ago, co-founded the Women's Leadership Council at Columbia. So that's a group of women supporting the athletics program at Columbia University. We've raised over $10 million for women's athletics at Columbia. So yes, it's been near and dear to my heart, but like how it was going to be formalized didn't really happen until a little bit later.
Yes, thanks for sharing that, because I feel often that entrepreneurship is not perhaps just the very end piece that you see, but a growing idea for many years sometimes has been experimented in different ways. So I think that's important to look at that. Yeah. What about you, Michael? Do you want to? I know you mentioned the start of Strava and how that came up from your time at Harvard and the rowing team. Do you want to expand a little bit on that and perhaps on what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. The the so I said we went to college last century, and it's actually kind of deep into last century. I graduated in 1988 from college. So back then, when we graduated, Mark and I, he was 2 years behind me, but say about 6 years later, we find ourselves in Palo Alto, uh, doing, working in, so moving from the East Coast to the West Coast. I had gotten married, started a family. Mark wasn't quite there yet, but so when we imagined what this could be, it was a reaction to the internet. The commercial consumer internet was kind of just getting going, and we were right in the environment where a lot of things were happening. And so we were really kind of just talking about what would we do if we were going to start a company. Both of us had other jobs. We were not, this wasn't kind of our only pursuit. But so what got us to think about Strava back then, 1994, 95, was that feeling of missing the team. And we really tried to think about, like, what were the things that we did. We went and saw what the practice was. It was listed on a board inside a shop in the town where the college was. We went and saw the workout on the board, and that was like an hour or two before we showed up at the boathouse. We walked into the boathouse and saw our teammates. We did the sport. We raced. We competed in the sport. We had coaches. We had equipment. All these things. We said, how do we represent all that using the internet? Well, we went and talked to back then, if you were doing anything in the internet, you were probably building a website. Today you can do that in 5 minutes, but back then you hired people to do it for you if you didn't know how to do it. It was very complicated. And they said, wait, let's get this straight. You want people who don't know each other to share information about their workouts on the internet. Well, that's never going to happen. People aren't going to share personal information about themselves with strangers. How are they going to track this information? Basically, they were telling us the technology isn't there yet. So in 1995, we didn't start Strava. We wrote the business plan. We had it all like figured out in our heads, but we couldn't do it. The technology wasn't available. And so we did something else. And we did start a company, a software company, completely different. And we won't go into the details on that, but it was in 2008, we were out of that other company. Things had gone well, and we had gone on to other pursuits. And then we were kind of sitting there not with nothing to do, but definitely we were like, well, remember back that idea we had about connecting people through sport using technology? Well, what has changed since 1995 and 2008 was you had social media for, all its ills. It definitely showed that people can connect on using technology. People who maybe don't even know each other yet can meet each other online. You had GPS available in your pocket, in a phone. How crazy is that? No one imagined that in 1995. And the most important thing is the importance of activity in our lives was just even more clear from a medical or a mental health perspective, and how important it was for people to stay active. So we felt, well, it wasn't the right time to start the company in 1995, but maybe it is in 2008. And so we started to work on it and got a team pulled together by the end of the year, and kind of were on our way. So that told me a couple of things. One is that you can have the idea and it might not be the right time. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It might be just the world isn't ready, or it just would be very hard. Had we tried to start it in 1995, I can only imagine that we might have gotten somewhere, but not really that far, and we would have given up, perhaps. But so timing is important, but more like the idea might be great. Just hang on to it and see what are the tailwinds. Do you have some tail? We've definitely found the tailwinds by 2008. That was important. And then the other thing that we recognized was we really tried to think about this as we're trying to represent what people do in real life through the thing we're building. We're not trying to get them to do something unnatural or inauthentic. And that was, I think, really important to making it worthwhile for us. We are working on this and building it. And I really liked the way you described it, Philippa, that you were already doing this. You were already, in a way, representing the values of LaunchBreak in how you walk through life. And so that was how you built the company, was saying, well, let's take what we're doing and just figure out how to do it for more and for it to have more impact. And I think that's what we viewed as what made Strava successful. We launched into a pretty crowded field. There were many, many other ways to track a workout. And we built something where people said, I don't want to track a workout. I want to belong to a community. I want to be part of something that's bigger than me, which is, I think, at the end of it, is what sport is all about, is being part of a community of people who are active. And so that was, I think, the key, maybe the key part of the founding story was like the timing, waiting for the world to receive and embrace the idea, and then building something that people felt that really fit with how they think about themselves and how they want to live their lives and have walk through their day.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
And interestingly, I feel like
Yeah.
through the COVID pandemic, Strava really took off and it became even much bigger in terms of what community could bring to people. That was really a turning point as well, right?
Yeah, I think it broke out of smaller circles during that time when people were looking for both motivation to be active, but also connection to others, and it was hard to connect. And so Strava really had, I guess, the right sails up at the time to catch those tailwinds. And then a lot of those people stuck around. That was also a really important part of it, is that it would sort of brought forward a lot of people who might have come to Strava over, maybe the next 10 years. They came sooner than that, and that helped transform the company quite a bit. So, and I think it's, if I can mention a little bit about the company I co-founded this year with the former head of design and research at Strava. It's a very small company, and this time it's intending to stay a small company. We want to build things that sort of have what Strava has, but for much smaller communities. So why do I say that? Well, in reaction to what happened with Strava, where it went from, sort of I call it a niche community. In some ways, it was still millions of users, but if you think about how many people in the world have activity as part of their daily life or weekly life, Strava was really tiny back in 2019. And today it's about 5 times as big. So it's what happens as you grow is you can't serve everyone's needs equally well anymore. There's so much diversity in how people move, what kind of sports they're into, but also just how activity fits into their life. And so what Strava needs to do today is stay relevant to a much larger audience and keep growing into the indefinite future. And that becomes really hard when you're really what was exciting, at least from my perspective, was building a product that everyone loves. And now I think we build a product that some people love, but many people like. So the difference between being loved and being liked, maybe that's one thing. And then there's a lot of people for whom we still can't build a great product. It just doesn't meet their needs. Maybe it's the kind of activities they do or where they are in their life in terms of their journey in sport. So what Nyfik, the new company, it's really a platform for developing digital products for niche communities. And to give you an example, the first community we're building for is it has nothing to do with sport necessarily, but we are building an app for San Francisco to tell you where the fog is in real time. And if you don't live in San Francisco, that may not make sense, but if you do live here, if you know. I'm staring out at the fog right now. So that's an example of what we're testing out here with building for small, but meaningful. Hopefully it fits into the way people live their daily lives in San Francisco.
Sort of a follow-up question to the start of both of your companies, and it's related to, and I'll ask Kelsey's question now right after that as well. It's related to sport and trying to link the two, your life beyond sport and the inspiration or the things that you've learned from sport. Is there perhaps one thing in particular that you've learned from sport that helped you through your career as an entrepreneur? Philippa?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a tennis player, and you always say like 1 point at a time. Like, you could be down 6-1, 5-0 and still win the match. And, as you being an entrepreneur, that like I could work 24/7 and not get everything done. So whenever I feel like I'm getting stressed or like there's so much going on, it's like divide it into small chunks and like don't look at the enormity of everything, like take one point at a time. Like I do that all the time. And I was a banker at Citibank for 10 years before, way back when. And like even back then, like, knowing how to calm yourself down, knowing how to like stay in the moment, and just looking at and prioritizing what's important one point at a time. To me, that's always been something that's been really important for me.
Yeah. Be able to take the hit and stand back.
I mean, I have 100 other lessons I could go on forever,
Yeah.
but like that's, the work ethic, the usual resilience, all that stuff. But like that's my one tennis thing.
Michael?
Yeah, I love that. And mine is maybe the flip side, which if that was the intrinsic, mine is the power of teams. The kind of rowing I did was in eights mostly. And so you have 8 rowers and a coxswain steering the boat. And you really get the sense that it's an individual sport, as well as that you can't do it without the conviction of all of the other people in the boat. Everybody is important. And I can remember thinking about that as in the context of starting a company, is that in some ways the most rewarding part about it is building a team that can go and accomplish the thing you're doing. And good things come out of that. Good things come out of the people you bring together, the chemistry, the way they work together, and you're unleashing something that even they didn't know they had, because it wasn't just them individually and the old adage of 1 + 1 = 3. Here it's, putting people together and setting the environment up so that they can accomplish something that they didn't think was possible, maybe when they first joined. That's really, I think, the key that I learned from sport, in my sport in particular.
Yeah, it's like the boys in a boat. I mean, I didn't read the book, but I saw the movie, and it feels just like that. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
It's such a team
it's like
sport. It's really amazing.
I tried to read the book and it was a little too close to home for me. It was like
Yeah.
they captured it so well, but they over dramatized it. And I'm sure anyone here who's read a book about the sport they do, they'll what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exactly what comes out in that story is the power of the team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about lessons, so Kelsey in her question was asking what lesson did you learn along your entrepreneur journey, but also what would you have done differently knowing those lessons?
You want me to go, or
Yeah.
Sure.
So I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know this, but the path towards entrepreneurship is never like straight up. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. I mean, I haven't been around as much as Michael in terms of my experience, but early on it was like, okay, are we going to get enough members? And like, just kind of keeping with the work ethic, keeping your belief, not giving up. Eventually things started to, go up for us, and we got more members, that we needed. And I think being able to pivot, we constantly take feedback from our community. Like, at one time we had our groups organized by industry by sport, and then we switched to by industry. Like taking feedback from other people is very helpful. Like don't stay in a silo. Maybe we could have done that a little bit earlier on, and not being too closed off, like taking advice from people. Don't feel like you should keep whatever your idea is too close to the vest.
I love that. Yeah. I'm thinking about sort of maybe, especially in the beginning of something, you have a vision of what it can be, but you have very little signal coming back to you about, is it going to be that? Are you going to make it? A lot of signals say that you're not. I mean, that's, as Philippa mentioned, it's like, it's a long journey and not linear at all. So one of the things I remember clearly is that you have to have the confidence and maybe confidence in yourself first and foremost. And that's where I think athletes, you wouldn't have gotten to where you got to if you didn't have that inside you, right? So it's like this thing that you have uniquely developed, makes you ready for the challenge of what in the absence of any information. In fact, probably getting more negative information than you are positive in the beginning. You have to have confidence about the future, this vision of what you're trying to create, And then you have to look for, like, what are the signals, the tiny little indicators that says, yeah, you're doing it right. You're getting there. You're going to get there. And so in Strava's case, we were growing really slowly in the beginning. I mean, I'm telling you, a big day was when 10 more people registered for Strava. But that was in
That makes me feel better.
2010. It was like slow going, right? But
Yeah.
I got this email from someone who worked at Google, and get this, their job was to sign up for stuff. That's all. Their only job was to register for different like apps and websites. And they said, Strava's my favorite thing I've registered for this week. Like, oh my gosh, that was like that was like, oh, someone who does this for a living likes what we're doing. Maybe that's the signal that says that we're doing it right, right? That was the little indicator that gave me confidence, and maybe translated into, like, you have enough of those little signals that you have that, you've developed this conviction that when you put your mind to it, you can do amazing things. That's what's going to carry you through those nonlinear, those ups and downs, the roller coaster of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and Teresa and I feel the same way. Like when we got Penn State to sign on, a huge Big Ten team, we're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Even though maybe it hasn't taken off as quickly as we wanted, but then we also got USA Wrestling and these other entities to join on board with us. And like those little wins really make you feel like, okay, maybe we do have something, even if we don't have, 150 people joining per day or whatever.
Yeah.
Or in the case of Strava, God knows how many per day. Yeah.
Oh, it's slow until it's fast, kind of, or it's not obvious it's going to work until it's obvious to everybody, and that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
But you can see more, you can pick up on more, and you can in some ways design. I think it's, if I want to give a recommendation, it's like actually consciously try to create the way to pick up on little signals that tell you if you're doing a good job. Like customer feedback is, like you mentioned, Philip, is really important. That's, those are the people, if they're willing to give you a little bit of their time to tell you something, it's gold. Whether it's good or bad, it's like people telling you things they don't like is just as important as people telling you things they do like. The worst is when you hear nothing, when no one tells you anything. It's like no one cares, right?
I know. I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we have a launch breaker on here. Sorry to put her on the spot, but Claire McSweeney's a launch breaker too.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's good to hear your feedback on the ups and downs, and definitely some things that we've experienced with Athletes Hall as well. There are days where you feel ecstatic with the news, and then in the next 2 seconds, something else happens and you're back down and you have to climb up again. But it feels very similar to what we do in sport as well. Todd is asking a question about, so you've both built engaged and mission-driven community in fitness and post-athletic career life. What have you learned, or are you learning about fostering authentic connection among users? Yeah.
So not just thinking out loud, we do, a lot of virtual networking nights, and not everyone attends, but after they do, there's really that warmth of connection. And we have 30% of our platform is volunteered to be mentors. And so women in our platform know that they can reach out to these other people and that they're open to talking to them. So that's one way we kind of foster that community. And I think there's authenticity for us because people are very honest in there. So we have like what we call the bulletin board, where people will just say, hey, I need help with this or that. And people will just kind of chime in. And we encourage people to do that. And we have separate spaces for people to connect with like-minded people. And I just think it's the tone that we set in the community, which is like, we're always very supportive. It's very supportive. It's not like, oh, I just became a managing director somewhere. Like there's none of that. It's more like, I need help with this. Can someone help me? And we have a job board where members will say, hey, my company has a job listed, tell me you're applying, I'll get you a referral. Like people are very, very giving. And I think it just kind of spreads within the community, and we kind of set that tone.
Is this a tone that you, like you said, you from the get-go set that tone of vulnerability and support? Or is this something that, so did it come from you and Teresa, or is it something that came also from the members?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, like if we see something like, okay, here are 10 places where you can apply for a grant for a women started business. Like, so we'll post things on there. Like a lot of people will just kind of give back and say, hey, I saw this great job at the USTA, apply here. Like we try to put some of that stuff out there and then the members kind of follow us. I know it's not scalable and we don't meet every member, but within reason, we try to meet people when we can and have some type of personal rapport with people too. And like, I think that they feel from us that we're supportive. And so, if we have these virtual networking nights, and at least sometimes we'll meet 30 people at a time. So people know our faces, they know that we genuinely want to help them. And I think people pick up on it and then they do the same thing. And certainly, I just think it's athletes in general want to give back. And like I said, at least 30% of our members have offered to be mentors.
Mm.
What about you, Michael? What do you think led to this just having such a big community and such engaged members at Strava?
Yeah, I really like hearing the way you described it, Philippa, that it comes from I guess the values of the founders. That's what Mark and I wanted to bring out. We didn't know exactly how to do it when we got started, but we kept working on it. So Strava wasn't what you see today. The user experience it didn't stay constant. So we developed by being led by this goal of saying we want to create authentic connection. It doesn't happen for everyone. So I want to be clear, like, lots of people use Strava in, we call it single player mode, where they don't really connect to other people. But the ones who use it the most and probably value it the most they do find that authentic connection. So some of the things that made it, we learned along the way. We didn't know this going in. And I want to be like, we got started and I felt like I went back to school and got a completely different kind of education in what it means to build something for people that really goes into how they live their daily lives. So it's not like we knew this going in. But what we learned over time was that what creates authentic connection is trust. That people have to feel that, number one, Strava is doing good things with their data. And we never sell user data. We don't use it for showing you ads. And so that's the starting point. Did you trust Strava to even give us your, the route that you ran this morning? And that's pretty important information for you, and some of your stats about your physical capabilities, right? That's an example of trust between the user and Strava. But then boil it down to we really constrained what you could interact with other people around. You couldn't just freeform reach out to people and start telling them things or sending photos around. You could look at their activity. You could give them a kudo, which is a high five, just good job, I see you. And you could comment on their activity. And those comments were public to everyone who saw the activity. So it wasn't a private message. Well, what that did, we realized later that by making the activity, we call it the atomic unit of Strava. It's like everything is built from the upload. By making that the center of everything, it kept Strava really positive. When you saw someone running and maybe they were doing, 2 kilometers and they weren't running so fast, but they uploaded their activity, well, then you're like, hey, I guess that's okay around here. I don't have to run a, sub, 40-minute 10K to be accepted here. And so you're going to share your walk. And maybe it's that actual interaction that says that that putting it on Strava is a positive reinforcement. There's no don't like button. It's only a high five. It's only a kudo. You can't take a kudo back. We can't take credit that we knew that was important, but you can't undo a kudo. So what does that mean? It's like, because it's not about I like or not like. It's that I see you. I saw you did it, and it's recognition and it's validation. So those are some of the things that we now can look back on. We made some choices and they turned out to be important, and we can say that actually is what generates this authenticity and trust between users. Because you don't want to be in community with everybody. You want to be in community with people who are going to give you some sense of validation. They're going to encourage you. It's going to be a positive experience for you. So I think those were those were like down into the reads and how Strava, the mechanics of how Strava works that we worked our way into over many years. And I think we're beneficiaries of those choices we made today.
I love when I get a kudo. I mean, I'm not, I don't have that many friends on Strava, but it's nice.
Most people don't have.
Don't look me up because my time's horrendous.
No. Well, so here's the thing is like most people have 3 or 4 close connections that they are connected to on Strava, and that's enough. It's not a broad social network where you are like LinkedIn, where you have maybe, dozens or hundreds of connections and you don't really care that much about any one of them. Strava is the place where most people have close connections and they care about them. And so that's what actually is more important, is how much you really, it matters to you that you got a kudo from somebody or gave one to somebody. I think that's a really key piece too, to fostering authentic connection is giving people a chance to feel that closeness as opposed to the breadth, the quantity. It's quality over quantity.
And I think both of your platforms are built with positive reinforcement. You are there for the reinforcing those small wins and the positivity of the community that you're part of. So that really helps too. One question that I want to ask you, because we've considered this at many points in the life of Athlete Soul as well, is when you initially started LaunchBreak and Strava and maybe your company now, Michael, did you ever have the end goal in mind? Did you have an exit strategy? We talk a lot of young entrepreneurs talk about exit strategy before they even started. Did you talk about what if the problem is solved? I'm just curious about if that ever came, or it was more about an opportunity and an idea.
Philippa, you want to go first again? I think
okay.
We're in a good role here.
That's fine. I was trying to, I think we certainly have goals in terms of being more of a global, huge platform and helping women. And so we have some end goals. In terms of exit strategy, we have some ideas, but we're new and like we love what we're doing and we want to kind of stick with it for at least another couple of years and see where it goes. We think about who could possibly, I guess, buy us or partner with us down the road. So it's in our minds, but right now it's just kind of, doing the best we can for our members, growth, and, that's a couple of years down the road, I guess, for us. But we have goals for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I learned, through in a number, I guess say it's sort of over years of experience of seeing companies talk about this, being part of companies that had to consider this. It's like you have it in the back of your mind, you can't help but have something in your back, but you don't focus on it. It's like the minute you start working towards the exit is where you started losing your way and start losing, maybe decreasing the value of what you're creating. So some things that really help guide or center on avoiding that is like always be thinking about your customer, always be thinking about who you're building for, because you can only do good things with that frame of mind. Like even if it isn't going to be the thing you ended up thinking it could be, but it won't steer you wrong when you're thinking about your customer. That's like that, at least my mindset. And so what's the counter to that? What knocks you off sometimes as well? What do you have to do to bring in the investors? Like, what do you have to convince them is possible? And then how are you going to deliver on that? That's like one thing I've come across so many times is like the things you do to raise the capital are the things that actually prevent you from being able to focus on the customer that you started with. The other mindset is like, well, we all face, in a philosophical way, we all face mortality or face at least opportunity cost of we could be doing something else with our time, or maybe we've done enough and we want to move on. So I also think if I'm thinking about the customer, am I building an organization that can live on beyond when I'm participating in it? And with Strava, we wanted it to be around for the full lifespan of our users, and so way beyond my lifespan. I was thinking from the very beginning, we have to create something that can withstand the test of time and can go on even when I'm no longer part of it. My co-founder is no longer part of it. And so we built up a team that can carry on, and we have a path where we reached profitability quite a while ago. So we run the company profitably. Those are the kinds of things that we thought of for longevity without thinking about exit. And, it's less about exit and more about longevity. And I think good things come from those mindsets, which ultimately lead to, if you do have a need or objective about a financial need or objective of exit, it can come from those things. If you have a need to leave the company and go do something else, that opportunity cost of your time, you can do that if you've thought of those things, and the company can continue on without you, without destroying the value. Those are the kinds of, I think, steps you can actually concretely take, as opposed to thinking about exit, thinking and having that be the goal in mind.
Oh, good. That makes me feel better, because I was you've been at this longer than I am. I was afraid you're going to say, well, I had an exit plan at year one. I was terrified you're going to say that.
No,
Good.
no.
It's in the back of our mind. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you were saying that, I couldn't help but think about an athlete who is in his career, and in the back of your mind, that it's not going to last forever, but you still have to stay in the game and develop some other things, but still be fairly focused on what's going on in front of you.
Yeah. And maybe that's, if I can tell just one more anecdote of where I decided it's time to find someone else to run the company, was when I realized I don't enjoy playing the game anymore. I don't, like, I was waking up every day thinking, I'm really not looking forward to this day of running this company. The things I'm doing are not the things I want to be doing anymore. The company's gotten to a size that it's not something I feel like I'm good at anymore. And it was a hard realization, because I really loved Strava and I loved being part of it. But it was definitely the right thing for me on the other side. And so that was like I think, similar to what you have to decide. In my case with rowing, I wasn't, ever contemplating continuing on with rowing after college in a real elite rowing program way. So I knew the day was coming. It wasn't a choice. It was happening to me no matter what. But for those who have to make a choice about when to stop, I think that was an important one, is how much are you doing this because it's your identity? You couldn't imagine not doing it. That kept me doing Strava for longer than I should have, probably. And then, are you waking up feeling like, yeah, this is exactly, I love what I do while it's still, this is what I want to be doing. That would be a reason to stay. So that was my story.
Shelley is asking to both of you, how did you decide to finally go all in your idea, especially if you had to walk away from a well-paying, stable position, if that was the case? I think we're going back to you, Philippa.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Well, for me, the timing was right, in that I'm a mother of triplet boys, and they were off in college, and so I felt like at least I had the time. Teresa also had the time, and having the right partner is crucial. We complement each other. Like I have a finance background, she has a marketing background. We have different strengths and weaknesses, and so that part made sense. It was something that we both loved, and yeah, I think if you're working full time, that is obviously a much harder decision. A very hard decision. And we did talk to a lot of our friends and bounce the idea off of our friends. So maybe getting some validation outside of yourself is helpful. We had a couple of focus groups and asked people, would you think that this would be helpful or whatever? So maybe just checking that the idea makes sense first, making sure that it's something you love, that you're willing to do around the clock. And I guess having a backup plan of some kind, see if there's a way to do it while you're doing your full-time job, at least in the beginning, just so it's a little bit less risky. I know Michael probably has better advice on this than I do.
I think that was all great advice. So as I was trying to think about it, it's like, how did what was it that, so before starting the first software company, I was a economics professor. So completely different in some ways, but what do you spend your time doing as a research economist is you come up with ideas and you think about them and then try to do some work on them and then you publish a paper. That's the output, is like you publish something, hopefully. So what's a startup? Well, you have an idea, you think about it for a while, and then you start doing stuff, and then you put out a product or you put out a service, right? So it's actually not that different. And so my mind was, that was sort of like fit my mind, my worldview, my orientation of like, I can create something. So that was the starting point, I think. So that's maybe the first step of like, how do you decide to go all in, is like, is this something that you're like Philippa said, you're going to be working on this a lot. You got to love it. You got to really be passionate about it. It shouldn't be just something like, well, I think it could work and I might make me some money and, it wouldn't be bad to do. Like, you got to love it, right? But then a mindset of, I can't let this not happen. I can't let it not be the thing I do. Life is too short for me not to go do this, is sort of like the thing that gets you over the threshold. But I do want to say is like, I've talked to many people who are like, I have this idea, I've been working on it, on the side while I've been having this other job. It's like, yeah, you can do that only for so long, but you don't really get that far unless you go all in. It's not easy. Very few people are really successful with getting their ideas to see the light of day, if they don't really commit to it. So that was it. Like, you don't know what the temperature of the water is if you're bouncing on the diving board. You got to jump off.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sounds like the same advice that we would get as athletes playing a lot of different sports. You got to commit to one at some point.
At some point.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good segue. Danielle asked if you still row or play tennis, or if you took a break. Have you been back to it?
So I still play. I don't play as much as I should. I play like once or twice a month. My kids all played competitive tennis in college, and so I kind of stayed in that whole tennis world forever. And so I love it, but that's why I'm on Strava. I run. I love running. I work out constantly. So it's not all about tennis. I just feel like I'm addicted to working out. So if it's not tennis, if I don't work out for like 2 days in a row, I feel weird. So, it's still part of who I am for sure. Sports in some way is definitely, I think of myself as an athlete first. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to answer the question is I row really infrequently, but when I do, it's like, it's life affirming. So it's maybe once or twice a year, I'll get out on the water. Like Philippa, I got into a lot of other sports after leaving collegiate rowing. In my case, I wasn't really an athlete before. I did sports as a kid, and I was never that good at anything. But so it was interesting. But when I graduated from college and I left rowing, I turned into a much more of a runner and a cyclist, triathlete. I still do a lot of different sports, but I love running, love cycling. And so in some ways, what's replaced rowing for me is just that sense of I love being really active, which I wasn't so active in high school. Even when my kids, I have 4 kids, they're now in their 20s and 30s. So when they were young, I was like, I had no time. And I went through probably a whole decade of not really being active before we started Strava. So I do want to give Strava a lot of credit for myself too, is like what really, I think, brought me back to activity was building Strava, so maybe extreme, but it's sort of, that's what rowing would be great, but it's hard to find the right environment, and you need a lot of equipment. You need, I keep a scull, but get out on the river only occasionally. So yeah, it's pretty rare.
And then I would also say I miss competition. So like, I'm not a fast runner by any means, but I'll sign up for a race. And like, even though I'm not going to finish like with any particular place, I just like that feeling of being like in some type of competition. So I enjoy that still. Like, that part I always miss. Yeah.
Andrew is asking, what advice do you have for athletes transitioning into new careers and dealing with imposter syndrome from starting over? being the expert in one arena to being a learner again in the next? What helped you stay grounded and trust the process?
That's a tough one. I guess like lean on your friends. I think get the skills if you can. Like, I know there's certificates you can take now. Like, so if you're transitioning from one type of career to another, talk to people, it's so easy to find people to connect with now and talk to people who are working in the industry that you're working in. And yeah, I think the imposter syndrome is real. I think we all kind of have that, and you just have to not let it get to you in some way. And I think being prepared, like we are as being athletes, is the only thing you can do. So talk to enough people, research enough things, and preparation, I think, is the only, it's hard, and maybe talk to someone. I know there are a lot of people we have a lot of people on LaunchBreak, and it's a constant topic about, pivoting. And we have a lot of women who are career coaches and executive coaches who kind of specialize in this area. But it's tough.
Yeah, it's real. One, I think that's great advice. All of those things would be what I would say. If I could also think about the kind of place you're trying to find that next opportunity. So if you go to a large company, they have very specific jobs where they're expecting anyone we hire needs to be really good at this job. You need to know all your stuff around this thing that we're hiring for. And we're going to find the person who knows it the best or can do it the best. So it's very specific, and we find people who can really do it. If you go to an early stage company, you're taking a lot more risk, but typically they're like, we got lots of way more things to do. We don't even know how to do them, right? We're not exactly sure what we need. We need people with a can-do attitude. Well, who has a can-do attitude? Athletes. So you may be much more interesting to a company that's smaller, still really trying to figure everything out, where they just need someone who's like, yeah, we're pretty sure you're going to be able to figure this out. We just need you to come join us now. We need you to be all in. Like who can move quickly and be all in? Athletes. So I would look at it as a choice of you might be taking more risk, and that's not available to everybody. And there's definitely some aspect of maybe that's not going to work for you, but that's a way to get away from having to be really the expert at something only to be able to get the job. You can be the generalist, or the one with the best attitude, the one with the sort of the best kind of positivity about what they can learn, and then you can get there and learn and get some skills.
And then the other thing we've noticed with our members, a lot of people don't even put their athletic experience on LinkedIn. Like that should be front and center. It should be on your resume. People, as Michael said, people value those skills. Like, don't be afraid to say that you were an Olympian or whatever, a D3 rower or whatever you are, or D3. You absolutely highlight that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we're all in agreement here that the character that you develop as an athlete and all those skills are highly valuable, and they definitely make you a strong contender. And the technical skills we can learn and figure out. But those traits that we've learned in sport, they're key. That's for sure. I'm looking at the time briefly, sorry. We have a question from Danielle, and perhaps that could be our last question, or maybe two more. How do you think your sport influenced your leadership style?
So, tennis is individual and team. Like, so growing up, it's individual, and then it certainly becomes team. And so you have to deal with different types of at least for me, to deal with different types of personalities. Sometimes people who are used to kind of not being part of a team and getting them to get the team mindset. But I think I always know that I have to depend on myself. And I always know that it comes from tennis. Obviously, you're out there playing by yourself unless you're playing doubles. But then at the same time, our team doesn't win unless everyone contributes. So that, we take that with us at LaunchBreak too. Like, we have a couple of people who work part-time for us. And, you know, Teresa and I have conversations, but we always make team decisions about how we're moving forward. So it's kind of important to, I guess, have both, depend on yourself, but then always depend on your team too.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. So I was going to say the same thing. So I'm going to have to come up with something else.
I'm so glad we're in sync.
So here's maybe it's the idea of when your leadership is about painting a picture of the future and helping orchestrate that we get there, making sure that you got the resources, you've got the strategy, and you've got people that kind of you're motivating the people. So you talk a lot about the future, but as athletes, what do we do every day? We show up for practice. You can't get to the championship. You can't get to the podium at the end without showing up every day. So I think as a leader, what I really valued about my life, life as an athlete was that idea of we have a long-term goal, something that we're aiming for, but it's the daily practice that gets us there. Not just talking about the future. You got to go do it and go through all the stuff, whether it's it's raining or sleeting. Worse yet, it's sleeting and you're out on the river and your hands can barely hold the oar, but like that day is really important for the 2,000 meters you're going to row 6 months from now. That day is part of it getting you there. So
yeah, having the vision and being able to embody it every day is important. So last question for both of you. If you had one advice for athletes who are thinking about starting their business, any last word?
For me, I think it's have the right partner. Because I think it's hard to do it on your own, and you need to have a partner who's willing to compromise. So we'll have discussions about something and maybe we have slightly different views on it, but we always find a way to compromise. Like, you don't want a partner who's like, I'm right all the time, this is how it's going to work, that's it. Like, find someone who kind of is in sync with you, even, and also has complementary strengths. But I think, you can't do it without the right partner. I don't know.
Yep, 100% agree with that. And then if I was going to add on the second thing for me, because that would have been, that's my number one as well. It's you need someone, and finding the right one is really very important. It can if you don't have the right partner, which doesn't show up right away. That'll come out later. That could be tough to get through. So on the other one, it's maybe it's so easy to say and so hard to do, but believe in yourself. You have ideas you start with, and those ideas are what gets you to get going. Those ideas may not work out. You may have to change where you're going. You may have to, that's called pivot. Don't use the word pivot, by the way. Everybody does it. It's like natural. It's not so much pivot, it's just you're evolving into what your vision really is. A vision isn't fixed once and for all. It changes because you learn, right? You have that, you can adapt and learn. But suppose you have that nailed, you still need to believe in yourself. It doesn't happen unless you believe in yourself. And if you have the co-founder with you, the partner, and you're believing in each other and yourselves, wow, that's where it really, like, you get this force multiplier on what you can do. So
that's awesome. I can relate to both advice that you have given, and I really appreciate all the insights, the answers. I don't know if anybody has any further question or
I appreciate the
else.
questions. They're so good.
Yeah, the questions are really good.
Yeah.
And thank you for, actually, I didn't realize that since I was going first on a lot of questions, it's a little bit easier, because then if your part was harder, Michael.
The way my brain works, it's like I need a moment to think. So it was very helpful for me that you were quick to have the first answer. So thank you.
Ed, did you want to ask something?
Oh, yeah. Well, and hopefully this isn't too big of a question to leave us off of, but as we incorporate this into the athlete's soul and thinking about this unique time in sport where there's a lot of changes and a lot more money entering the market and a lot more people thinking about this issue of people retiring from sport and kind of losing their identities. Like, how can we think about changing the systems, or what language can we use to talk to boardrooms and athletic departments to really show that this is an important thing to think about the communities that you lose after retiring from sport? Sorry if that's too big. I know we're 3 minutes over, but I've been dying to ask that question.
I think it's, yeah. I know at Columbia, we have a very strong alumni network and we have lots of get-togethers so that, even though we're not competing anymore, we see each other. It's easy because we're in New York, pretty frequently. And then I think, developing the skills that you need to transition out of being an athlete. Like, I do see that all the time. Like, I feel like companies should make more of an effort to provide internships or part-time positions for athletes according to their schedules. Like, some people compete during the summer, so they need their internships during the winter, right? So I feel like the conversation has to change from like the corporate side and be willing to offer a job sharing or part-time opportunities or something so these athletes can get their skills, because sometimes it's very hard, especially being a Division I athlete these days. It's just, there's no extra time. And then I feel like the schools have an obligation to keep that community going in some way. And, in terms of Olympians or other things, and, those entities should, I don't know, have get-togethers, have resources for people to talk to. Michael, your turn.
Yeah, well, I think it's so this is the work you're in every day, Philippa, and the same with you, Miriam. That it's the organizations that are directly working on it are doing good work, and that's going to be really important. I think it needs to be part of the cultural conversation, and so that's where it's how do we get the reach into people who may not even be board level or kind of part of running institutions, but more like it's part of the way that we have a discourse around it, from a sense of this is a big issue. This is actually an important issue of the health and well-being of millions of people in the world. And like it's sort of like we expect one thing of them during one phase of their life, and then we forget about them completely in the next. That's what it needs to be part of the cultural conversation. And so getting that story out. What I learned, so really quick, is that the power of the story of what is the message you're trying to communicate and how do you get it out there so that others will talk about it is what gets something to really take hold. You can only use the megaphone for so long. Other people have to start relating to each other about the issue, and then you really see some change. You see some change in mindset and a real development of a different future, a different world.
This is so true, and I think that's also what has brought a lot of us in the same room with Athletes All, is just relating to the same challenge, and that has brought us together to try to change things. And perhaps we'll get what you got at Strava is little by little. It seems very slow at the beginning, and then it accelerates. You don't know it accelerates until it accelerates.
Well, you're doing great work here with Athletes Soul. I mean, it's so important. So, and a great name too.
Well, thanks, Philippa, and thank you to both of you for joining and sharing your insight. This was a really interesting conversation. I really appreciate you both taking the time. I know we're all busy, and this is really appreciated. The recording will be shared with our community, and many more athletes will listen in. And we'll continue to send some athletes to LaunchBreak as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, anybody who's here. So
yeah, likewise for sure.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a lovely weekend, all of you. And yeah, thanks again.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. Bye. Bye. Okay.